Welcome to Monthly Mentoring. I'm Senior National Sales Director Judy McCoy, and I'm grateful to be sharing this time with you. I don't know if you're listening while in traffic or on your treadmill, but I do know that because you've made a priority of listening, you are intentional about growing your leadership and growing your business. Passing on the leadership baton is our lesson today. Mentoring, leadership, changing lives. The lessons we learn as a leader far surpass those of a student. In our business, it means looking for, finding, and recruiting others who are wanting, willing, and working to reach their goals and fulfill their purpose. Although most everyone claims they want to be a powerful leader, not all will accomplish it. Today's lesson will help us become the spark which ignites a soul by understanding the importance of nurturing all, equipping many, and mentoring a few. We'll learn about the process, about making connections, building relationships, making a difference in another person's life. We'll learn how to grip our inner vision and not let it go as we build others. It's the way we cast our vision to another and allow her to see it for herself in Technicolor. We will mentor those who achieve their goals and those who will not. Some of the rewards of our leadership will be harvested in ways we may never see. We will give the two greatest gifts of all, roots, which are the skills they need to achieve, and wings, which is belief in themselves and the self-esteem to live out their God-given purpose. A wise woman who was traveling in the mountains found a precious stone in a stream. The next day she met another traveler who was hungry, and the woman opened her bag to share her food. The hungry traveler saw the precious stone and asked the woman to give it to him. She did so without hesitation. The traveler left, rejoicing in his good fortune. He knew the stone was worth enough to give him security for a lifetime. But a few days later, he came back to return the stone to the wise woman. "I've been thinking," he said. "I know how valuable this stone is, but I give it back in the hope that you can give me something even more precious. Give me what you have within you that enabled you to give me this stone." Every blade of grass has its angel that bends over it and whispers, "Grow, grow." It's a thrill for me to be introducing a man who does just that for us. When you are in his presence, you feel his leadership and you experience his influence in action. The next minutes will be power-packed and life-changing. Get ready. Today's lesson, Passing on the Leadership Baton, will help you change lives. May I introduce to you John C. Maxwell.
In my book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, I have a law called the Law of Legacy. That law says a leader's lasting value is measured by succession. I'd like to talk about that today, and let me give you the catalyst of why I want to do this lesson. A few months ago, I did a book tour, and it was interesting. It was a 15-city, 5-day book tour, and in the traveling from city to city and doing this tour, I met people, and I met people who talked to me about the value of other people pouring into their life and raising them up as leaders. Let me just give you just a few stories that will kind of really give the setting for why I'm doing the lesson that I'm doing today. Because we had to do 15 cities in 5 days, Thomas Nelson was very kind, and so they got us a Learjet and said, "Look, we'll fly you around so we can really do what you got to do." And so the very first day we started off, I think we were in Orlando, then we went to Tampa, then we closed that day in Washington, D.C. And we were going back to the airport in the evening to go to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and the pilot said, "John, there's a couple guys that are stranded, and they really need to go to New York City. And if you don't mind, I'd like for them to get on the plane with us. And I'll take you to Harrisburg, drop you and your tour off and group off, and then I'll take them to New York City, come back and get you in the morning. No problem." And I said, first of all, who is it? And one of the two people was Isaiah Thomas. And then I said, well, of course I would like to give him a ride. It's just the least a person can do to help somebody that's stranded. So I kicked two of my own team off the plane so we'd have room for Isaiah and me. No, I really didn't do that at all. We had plenty of room. And so Isaiah and I, he came on and we started talking and we had a wonderful, wonderful conversation of which he wanted to talk to me about leadership and I wanted to talk to him about basketball. And so it was funny because we were both really striving to get the conversation to the other guy's field, and he kind of jumped me and got me on leadership, and I'm giving him leadership stuff as fast as I can so that I can get on important subjects like basketball. And so finally, I get off the leadership, and one of my first questions, I've got a list of these questions I want to ask him, and of course he played for Indiana University and Bobby Knight, and so I wanted to talk to him about Bobby Knight and his coaching. And so I asked him about Bobby Knight, and he told me some very interesting things. And one of the reasons he's such a successful coach, Isaiah Thomas said, is that he teaches them to, instead of having set plays in a ball game, to read the defense and then respond accordingly. And because basketball is such an instinctive, quick game, he said gave us a way to attack the team very successfully. And so we talked about that. But I could tell that he held Bobby Knight in great high regard. And then he made a statement to me that, again, stimulates this kind of lesson. He said, let me tell you something. He said, if you can survive 4 years at Indiana University, or if you can stay under the teaching, mentoring, coaching of Bobby Knight, he said he will teach you enough in those few years at the university for you to be a success in life. And he looked at me and said, I can tell you right now, much of the things that I have accomplished today are because of the things that I learned from Bobby Knight. And I said, oh my, here was a coach leaving a legacy for one of his basketball players. What I'm saying is, it's the passing on of the leadership baton. And as I would do this book tour, I would always close each session by the way that I'm opening this session here on passing on the leadership baton. For in your notes, I had 3 desires for leaders that when I would close every session, I would tell them, here's what I have as a desire for you. Number 1, for you to continue to grow as a leader. Number 2, that you would raise up your children to be leaders. And thirdly, that you would raise up potential leaders around you. What I found very interesting is when I talked about number 2, raising up your children to become leaders, I could tell that I really touched a soft spot in the lives of people. I remember in one of the cities, I said the greatest gift that we could ever give our country is to give our country a generation of young leaders, a wonderful generation of new, young leaders. And I would sometimes talk about how my mom and dad modeled leadership for us and had us read leadership books and all those things such as that. I was in Tampa. One more little story on passing the baton on, which really is the setting for the whole lesson. And a father came up to me and handed me the 21 Laws book to sign. And when he handed me that book to sign it, his name was Bob. I assumed that he wanted me to write Bob in it to Bob. And so I started to, and all of a sudden I hesitated. I said, is this to you? And he said, no. He said, I already have that book. And he had his daughter with him. Her name was Jennifer. She was 15 years old. And he said, this book isn't for me. This book is for my daughter. And he put his arm around Jennifer. He said, her name is Jennifer. And he said, she's already a good young leader. She's going to be a great leader. And I want you to sign the book for her. And when he said she's going to be a great leader, I looked at this little girl, and I saw he had spoken faith into her spirit. I saw he had literally put wind beneath her wings. I saw this 15-year-old girl who is seeing herself through her father's eyes. And again, I thought, what's he doing? He's getting her a book to put into her hands. He's trying to pass on the leadership baton. And if you'll allow me in this lesson, I'll talk about legacy, I'll talk about succession, I'll talk about raising up leaders. But if you'll allow me, I'm going to bend this lesson a little bit. I'm going to bend this lesson just a hair to say, why don't we concentrate on passing the leadership baton on to our children? Why not raise up some leaders within our own family? So what I'm going to share with you will help you developing leaders around you, but it'll also help develop the leadership within your children's lives. So how do you raise up a leader? Let's get going because we got some very important things that we want to share in these next few minutes. Number 1, understand and teach the qualities of leadership. Now, I've done a lot of lecturing on what makes a leader, what's the characteristics of a leader, what are the qualities of a leader. I do that in leadership seminars. I've done this in leadership tapes. So they say, John, what's going to make this different than anything that you've ever done? What's going to make this different is I've never talked about qualities that are in kids that you can detect that show you that they may have some leadership potential. So what I'm going to give you here, it's qualities for adults, but this is also kids' qualities. For example, you're going to understand immediately. Let me give you number one, you're going to immediately say, oh, I got this. Number one is likability. This is a very key quality of a leader. I'm talking about a friendliness and a charm that naturally attracts others. Look at your child. If you have a child that has that kind of a charm about them, or that there's a friendliness about them, a warmth about them that attracts other people, this can be formed into a very strong leadership quality. Let me tell you why I put that one down, and it's kind of interesting because, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I received a note that I would never expect to receive, from my 4th grade teacher in school. Now, the reason her name is Mrs. Tacey, and the reason that I would have never imagined receiving a note from her is the last time I can ever remember talking to her or seeing her was when I was in the 4th grade. So I don't know. How old are you when you're in the 4th grade? What are you? 8 or 9? 10 maybe max. Okay. In fact, she not only sent me this note, handwritten note, she also sent me a picture of her. And what was interesting is when we had Mrs. Tacey in the 4th grade, it was her first year as a 4th grade teacher. She just got out of college. So we were her first 4th grade class, and I can still remember her. I'm a 4th grader. I thought, she's beautiful. She's beautiful. I had a crush on my teacher. I mean, she just, she was beautiful. Wonderful, wonderful lady. Anyway, what happened, the reason she wrote the note is she was, I don't know, somewhere in a bookstore, and she bought my book, The Success Journey. And she read it, and so she found out where I was so that she could write me this letter. And I'm not going to read you the whole handwritten letter, but I got her, this is kind of a prized possession to me. But here's what, in the second paragraph, let me just read a statement, and this will I'm talking about likability. I'm talking about if you have a child that has a kind of a likable, approachable type of a personality, this is a leadership quality that can be enhanced. She said, I can remember you well in the 4th grade at Franklin Street School. And then she said, your friendliness and positive attitude and excellent work habits were appreciated. Now, what I'm saying to you is if you have a child that has a friendliness about them, this is something that makes them likable. Now, what I want you to do here, and I'm going to just take a moment, and I want you to write down what characteristics does a likable person possess. I mean, when you like somebody, why do you like somebody? And what I want you to do in this room is I want you just to talk to me for a moment. Just give me, what is it? What is it that makes a person likable to you? And if you'll talk to me, just let's 2 or 3 of them real quick. If we can give them, we'll be in good shape. What makes a person likable to you?
Caring.
Okay, caring. Very true. They're caring. You can just tell they care for you. You say, ooh, I like them, and I think they like me. Very good, caring. What else makes a person likable? Friendly, absolutely. Kind of outgoing, warm. Okay. Great smile. Okay, now you're getting the idea. And there are, I think I got place for 6 of them, but we've already given you 3 of them, but those may not be the 3 that you want. But can I tell you what you're going to find about all of them? And this is what is so key. I will guarantee you what you write down on these blanks that makes a person likable, every one of those things are teachable. You can teach a person how to smile. You can teach a person how to be friendly. You can teach a person how to be kind. You can teach a person how to care. So what I'm saying to you is these are transferable, teachable things that we can cultivate within our children's lives that allow them to have what I call a likable personality. So if you have a child that seems to kind of have that bent anyway, really work on it, because this is going to help them develop as a leader. Now let me give you the second thing, or letter B. Another quality of leadership is persuasiveness. This is the ability to convince others. And let me just stop here for a moment. Aren't kids naturally persuasive? I mean, think of kids. I mean, This is something they all seem to be born at, whether it's positive persuasiveness or screaming until they get it. You know what I mean? Yelling. I mean, kids have, and kids never seem to wear out of asking you for something that they want. You wear out, the store wears out, you know what I mean? The family wears out, I mean, everybody wears out. But the kids, they just keep on asking. Well, okay, let's take the word persuasive for a moment. In the Latin, the Greek of that, the part per means through, and the suasio means sweetness. So really, persuasion means that you convince someone through sweetness. In other words, persuasion is not an act of bringing people over to your side. It is an act of you going over to their side and together slowly walking to the other side. That's what persuasiveness is. Now, so I sat down when I was working on this lesson, and there's a process for persuasion I want to give you, 7 kind of steps. When you want to persuade somebody, the first step is conviction. I feel strongly about something. In other words, I've never tried to persuade somebody to do something that I didn't feel strongly about myself. Okay, so it starts with conviction. Then number 2 is motive. I desire what is best for that person. That makes the persuasiveness to have a good motive base. And then number 3 is other person focus. This is where I move into their world. Again, persuasiveness is going to their side. I move into their world. Number 4 is understanding. And now on understanding, what I do is I live in their world. In other words, I connect with them. Okay, that's where the connection comes with. Then number 5 is observation. I see and I say things from both perspectives. In fact, when I was doing this part of the lesson, I thought, man, I ought to do a whole lesson on persuasion, because that's exactly, this is the step process. Then number 6 is guidance. I offer a plan or a process for that desired change in their life. And then number 7 is assurance. I walk with them through the change process. And in persuasion, there are 3 key words to always remember in persuading people. Number 1 is mission. I only persuade people when I believe in what I'm doing or where I'm going. Number 2 is motive. I always have to do it for the right reason, and the right reason is to add value to them. If I persuade to add value to myself, I'm probably manipulating. And number 3 is maturity. As we mature, I think we get a proper perspective of how to persuade. Now, in understanding the qualities of leadership, likability, persuasiveness, these are qualities. Letter C, daring. The willingness to take chances and persevere or risk. In your notes, I have a wonderful paragraph by Fred Smith. Fred Smith says that something in human nature tempts us to stay where we're comfortable. He said we try to find a plateau, a resting place, where we have a comfortable stress and adequate finances, where we have comfortable associations with people without the intimidation of meeting new people and entering strange situations. He said, of course, all of us need to plateau for a time. We climb and then plateau for assimilation. But once we've assimilated what we've learned, we climb again. It's unfortunate when we've done our last climb. When we've made our last climb, we are old, whether 40 or 80. Great, great statement. When we've made our last climb, we're old, whether 40 or 80. The ability to stretch, the ability to get out of our comfort zone, the ability to take risk, this is a quality of a leader. When you see somebody that has this quality, you're a child, or you see somebody that's an adult that has this quality, what I'm saying to you is that that shows that they have some leadership potential within them. I can remember many years ago going to Acapulco. Oh, this would have been back in, about 1982, 83. And it was the first time I'd ever been there, and it's the first time I'd ever seen cliff divers. And I remember just sitting there at this restaurant looking over at this huge cliff, I don't know, 100 feet high or whatever, and watching these guys dive into this little narrow channel that were from the water of the ocean. And, it looked very, very dangerous to me. And a guy came over and sat down beside me, and I asked him, I said, wow, all those rocks, and the tide goes in and out. It just keeps going in and out. And when the tide goes out, that whole that whole little inlet is basically no water in it, or just a little bit of water, and the rocks are down there. And then it comes in and fills it up with water, probably 30 or 40 feet of water, and then goes back out. And so I was talking to him about it, and I said, man, I would think these guys would get killed. And he said, let me tell you the secret of cliff diving. He said, you have to dive off the top of that cliff when you see the rocks below. He said, that's when you have to dive. He said, if you dive when you see the water, the tide will go out, and when you land, there'll be rocks. So he said, when you see the rocks below, that's when you dive. Because he said, then the water's going to come in, fill it up, and you're going to land in the water. And I thought, whoa, how many people never really ever take the risk because they see the rocks, not the water. They don't understand the timing. They don't understand the whole deal. But if you have a child, if you know somebody around you that has some persuasiveness, some likability, some risk-taking within them, these are all qualities that can be enhanced to make them a leader. Letter D, energy. This is key. When I speak of energy, I'm talking about a vitality to keep going and inspire others to do the same. And when I speak of energy, by the way, I'm not talking about hyperactivity. I know a lot of people that just wear you out. I mean, they just wear you out. I mean, they're just kind of hyper, like a chicken with a head cut off. They're just kind of flapping around the yard, and you just kind of watch them for a while and say, I'm tired. I'm dizzy and tired. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not talking about hyperactivity. I know a lot of high energy people that don't have these spiked energy times, but they just don't. They're like the Energizer Bunny. You know what I'm saying? They just keep on ticking. So what I'm talking about high energy, I'm not talking about impressing people with spikes of energy. I'm talking about people who just can keep on going. But if you see somebody that has high energy, this is a quality of leaders. Leaders are basically high energy people. And the reason for that is because what they want to do and what they want to accomplish takes a long time, and they have to be able to have that drive within them. Somebody asked me one time, they said, John, you keep on going. I mean, how can you do this? And I said, well, it's very simple. You got to have high energy, and you got to have low IQ. If you have both those things, you can keep on going. Now, if you have high energy and high IQ, you're smart enough not to do that all the time. If you have low energy and low IQ, of course, you're in real trouble. But if you have it's got to be a balance. Low IQ and high energy, then all of a sudden you just keep on going. When you run around a low energy person, I have an uncle that's very, very low energy, and I never will forget the time he told me that the doctor told him to slow down. And I mean, I'm looking at this guy that has no energy at all, and doctors, and I said, if you do, Uncle Dave, if you do, you'll be in reverse. I mean, you'll be going backwards if you slow down. I mean, how can you slow down if you're already stopped? You know what I'm saying? Okay. Here's what I found about people with energy. People with energy, number one, have a zest for life. Think about this. Now, I'm going to give you some qualities of high energy people. Think about this. High energy people have a real zest for life. They want to get all they can out of life. They're going to wring that sucker dry. Think about it. Number two, they have a purpose in life. They really do believe that they've got to accomplish something while they're here. Number three, they have a good deal of success in life. I believe success feeds energy, just like I think failure drains energy. That's why we have to understand failure in its proper perspective, because if we don't, it'll deplete us. People with high energy, number four, they have an optimism in life. There's an optimism about life and in life itself. And then number five, you don't need to fill in the blank. They have good genes. They have good genes. I never realized this. I used to just think everybody ought to have high energy. And then I've run into too many wonderful people that don't have high energy. And one day I looked at it and I said, wow, this isn't the only thing, but a lot of it is in the genes. I'm blessed. My father has major high energy, still does, but had it throughout his life. And I have it. And I think a lot of times high energy people just had high energy parents, and I suppose low energy people had low energy parents as far as that's concerned. Okay, so a lot of it you can't take credit for. It's in the genes, I suppose. Letter E, another quality of a leader is decisiveness, the ability to choose a course of action. Okay? I love this next statement. Give me ambiguity or give me something else. Don't we know people like that? In fact, Casey Stengel, the great manager for the Yankees and the Mets, said, "I made up my mind, but I made it up both ways." I just, I guess I want my options. Here's what I know: whenever you see a successful business, someone has made a courageous decision, and that is a fact of life. The ability to be decisive. The other day, I read a real cute story. Let me just give it to you quickly. A personnel manager had advertised a job opening, and a large group of applicants was waiting in a waiting room. The first young man was ushered into her office, and she began explaining the job to him. "We need someone in this job who can make fast decisions," she said, "someone who can really think on his feet. Can you show me that you're capable of doing that?" Without a word, the young man got up to his feet, stuck his head out the door, and announced to the waiting applicants, "Okay, you guys, you can all go home. The job's been filled." Great. In Atlanta, one of the things we found in moving here is that we have storms. And, in California, we had earthquakes. Here we have storms. And, we get some pretty heavy lightning storms and some wind. And you know what we found out? After a storm, you take like an oak tree. You'll find trees and limbs like that of oak trees or something like that. They're all over the place. They're on the ground. Because the oak tree doesn't have the ability to bend. It's rigid and it's there and it looks solid, but when that wind comes, it breaks. It breaks. Where you take fir trees, they can bend, and you don't pick up limbs from fir trees. That's the reason they're the king of the forest, is because the fir trees, they've got flexibility. The oak trees, they don't have flexibility. So when the storm comes, the oak trees can't make it. The fir trees can. Well, in life, it's very true the very same way. The ability to be adaptable, the ability to be flexible. In your notes, I said there's a difference between having a goal with several options to achieve it and not having a goal and being flexible. So it's not that you should not have goals, but what you should always do, you ought to have several avenues, you ought to have several roads to accomplish that goal. If you don't have a goal, you're not flexible, you're just wishy-washy. So you want to have goals in life. But then you want to say, but there are at least 4 or 5 different ways that I can get to that. Because most of the things I've ever tried to accomplish that were worthwhile and were big, most of them, the road that I mapped out was not the road I could take all the way to accomplish that. I had to have adaptability, flexibility. So in your notes, here's what I write. Having a goal with flexibility equals a leader. In other words, if you have a goal but you're flexible, you're a leader. Having a goal with no flexibility is a manager. Having no goal with flexibility is a follower. And having no goal with no flexibility is a lonely person. And haven't we seen those too? Okay, so there's some good stuff there on adaptability. It's just another potential quality of a leader. Letter G is optimism. Basically, just the belief that you will ultimately succeed. You see, optimism is often associated with enthusiasm. Optimism comes from a French word which means best and greatest. It also has a Latin root that means power. And enthusiasm, a Latin word, means to be inspired in or by God. And so when you put all that together, the best power is inspired by God is optimism. The best power that God gives us is an optimistic spirit. And the reason for that is a person with an optimistic spirit has hope, and a person that has hope will constantly keep on working and striving because they believe it will get better. Just as a person who lacks that hope will give up. One more quality of a leader, and that is goal-oriented, which is a drive to get things accomplished. 2 statements, all is well that begins well, that deals with seeing the goal. In other words, all is well that begins well means I can see the goal, I can see where I want to go, and all's well that ends well means seizing the goal. I see it at the beginning, I seize it toward the end, okay? And goal-oriented is a great quality of a leader. Okay, in your notes, success is determined by goals finished, not goals attempted. If you're a person who tends to equate goals with failure, in other words, have you set goals in the past and end up feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, discouraged because you didn't reach them? There are three primary reasons people establish goals that are setups for failure. Number one, the first reason is that we set goals when we're on an emotional high, When we're on an emotional high, we set goals. And what happens is, when we get off the emotional high, those goals are no longer motives for us at all. Number two is we set goals where we have no track record, We set goals where we have no track record at all. In other words, we haven't established ourselves as being able to pull this off. And number three is we set high goals to impress the boss. If we try to set goals to impress someone else, I promise you there's a time when we'll let go of those goals. Okay. How do you raise up leaders? First of all, understand and teach the qualities of leadership: likability, persuasiveness, risk-taking, energy, decisiveness, adaptability, and optimism. The second way that we raise up a leader after we understand the qualities of leadership and try to tap those, the second way we raise up a leader is to serve as a leadership model. We want to serve as a leadership model. And we have to understand that we as leaders have huge influence. What we are speaks so loud that others cannot resist what we say. What I mean by that is that as a model, what we are is what our children become. In the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, again, we teach one of those laws, which basically says we attract. It's the law of attraction. We attract who we are, not who we want. And let me talk about kids for a second. When I was on the road a lot with our kids when they were younger, one of the things that Margaret did so well, she would talk to the kids about why I did what I did. And Dad's going to go to help people, and he's going to go teach them about how to be leaders, and he's helping pastors become more effective in their work. And she did a real good job helping them understand the reason behind the action. And I think sometimes we assume that they just automatically will get that. And so we say, well, I'm modeling this for them, but they not only need to see the model, but they also need to understand why we do what we do. So serve as a leadership model. Number three, encourage communication skills. This is really key. Encouraging people to communicate effectively, because here's what I have found about leaders. Almost all leaders are just excellent communicators. They have the ability to communicate. Winston Churchill, in your notes, once said about a colleague, he is one of those orators who, before he gets up, does not know what he is going to say. When he is speaking, does not know what he is saying. And when he has sat down, doesn't know what he has said. I've heard people like that, haven't you, huh? In fact, the other day somebody sent me this, and I just love it. It's not in your notes at all. But this was asked in the Miss Universe contest. If you could live forever, would you, and why? And here's her answer. Well, I would not live forever because we should not live forever. Because if we were supposed to live forever, then we would live forever. But we cannot live forever, which is why I would not live forever. Now there's a communicator for you, isn't it? Huh? Hey, or Brooke Shields, when she was being interviewed on the federal anti-smoking campaign, she said, here's what she said. She said, smoking kills. And if you're killed, you've lost a very important part of your life. I mean, these are people that, they just don't know how to communicate. Well, the ability to teach your kids how to communicate is huge. Lee Iacocca said the ability to communicate is everything. We went to Jonesboro, Tennessee. Myself, my wife Margaret, Dan Ryland, his wife Patty, and Tim Elmore and his wife Pam. I've always wanted to go to Jonesboro, Tennessee, and they have a national storytelling contest every year. It's just a little town of about 1,200, but on this weekend, 15,000 people come to this city. And they just tell stories. They have 5 tents anywhere that hold from anywhere from about 1,000 up to 5,000 people in each tent, and they just all day long tell stories. And it was so much fun. We just had the best time listening to great stories, laughing, crying, the whole deal. And I put in your notes so you wouldn't have to write this down because of time. But there were some tips that I learned at the Storytellers Festival about communicators. And there are 15 of them in here. And I just want to encourage you to look at them and apply them to your life. But learn how to communicate. This helps you to learn how to be a leader. This helps you to pass on leadership to other people. But let me close that session with Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, all the great speakers were bad speakers first. Just always understand that. Don't get discouraged. If you're not a good speaker, just say, hey, we all start on bad, okay? And hopefully we'll improve and get better. I'm still on my success journey. The kid's 8 years old. I thought he knows more about success than most people that are 48 because he's understanding, but he's being exposed to the whole process. And at the end of that conference, I had lunch with him and gave him my 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership and signed that to him and said, now, Nicholas, you read this book. And I got a note from him a couple days later. And he's told me he'd already started reading the 21 Laws of Leadership. And what I loved is how he closed the note to me after he tells me all this. He closes the note. He's 8 years old. Your pal, Nick. Great. Your pal, Nick. I love that. I love it. The great joy of receiving a letter like this is the fact that you realize that what you put so much time and effort into continues on. And in this case, to a higher and a better level. That's the reason we pass on the leadership baton to our kids.
John's message helps us understand clearly that leaving a legacy, a choice, a decision, a privilege, how easy it is to overlook the most important people in our lives, our family, when we discuss leadership. His principles are no-nonsense, common-sense ways to develop leaders in our children. When you affect a child's self-esteem, you impact future generations. Leadership is about capturing the imagination and enthusiasm of a person with clearly defined goals that cut through the fog like a beacon in the night. If you can see the invisible, God will do the impossible. It's been said that to whom much is given, much is expected. Let's look at what we've been given. An unlimited opportunity, a better way of life, the financial abundance we choose, working with our value system, freedom to prioritize our life. What beats inside you? It's only your ability to transfer to others that will make a difference in another person's life. It is lifting another person to their feet when their wings have trouble remembering how to fly. Our words are continually educating others around us. Let them create a portrait of enthusiasm and faith. And remember to lead others. They must respect our position. Elevate yourself so you can elevate another. Build a relationship with them. It takes time and work and is the most rewarding gift of all. Let them see results from us personally. It will give them the confidence to excel themselves. Reproduce ourselves by giving them footsteps to follow. And let them respect us. Only then will they follow and allow our legacy to continue. Korczak Kolkowski saw in a mountain a magnificent sculpture which would make Mount Rushmore pale in comparison. He saw a way to honor the legendary Indian leader, Crazy Horse, with the magnificent wonder of the world. He said, "When the legends die, the dreams end. When the dreams end, there is no more greatness." It is our responsibility to have legendary leadership, to pass on the baton of leadership, to be the shade tree under which we may never sit, to light tomorrow with today as we continue our personal quest for excellence. Yes, you do make a difference, externally, internally, and eternally. There's a Chinese proverb that says, if you are planning for a year, sow rice. If you are planning for a decade, plant trees. If you are planning for a lifetime, build people. Leadership begins with each one of us. It calls us to a standard of personal excellence and discipline. Mary Kay said, "You can't teach what you don't know. You can't lead where you don't go." When we make a connection with another and recognize her ability, we can breathe belief into her soul, equip her with skills, and inspire her to personal achievements far beyond today's possibilities. As a leader, we can elevate others. We can become a person of influence in the best sense of the word. Don't treat today like a luxury. Treat it as a precious gift to be used to its fullest. We are all in the process of becoming, and who that is will determine our legacy. We're all writing a story. Let's make it a bestseller. Thank you, John, for your influence, for your leadership experiences. The difference you've made in thousands upon thousands of lives is a treasured gift to our world. Your baton is being passed. If by chance you're listening to a borrowed monthly mentoring CD, we hope that you found today's lesson inspiring and beneficial. If you would like this monthly mentoring CD club to be delivered directly to you at your home or office, or would like more information, please visit us at www.mmpink.com or call us at 888-556-2308. Don't forget to download today's lesson notes at www.mmpink.com. Now, go put an idea into practice or share a fresh concept you've just learned with a colleague. It's only information unless you do something with it. Bye for now. We'll see you next month.